Ron Howard sits back in his chair. His red hair is now gray, but the playful look in his eyes is still there. For many years, people knew him as the perfect American boy. He was Opie on The Andy Griffith Show, Richie Cunningham on Happy Days, and later the clean-cut director who made some of Hollywood's biggest movies. But tonight, Ron isn't acting like Mr. Perfect. Tonight he's dropping the nice guy act and sharing his secrets. He laughs in a low, guilty way. The kind of laugh that says he knows he's about to stir up trouble. You know, people always thought I was the good kid, the sweet one. And for a long time, I let them think that. But here's the truth. Nobody ever asked me. I wasn't always thinking sweet thoughts. I had crushes, strong feelings, wild thoughts, just like everybody else. Heck, maybe even worse than everybody else. And some of the women I worked with, let's just say keeping my good boy image was the hardest job of my career. His smile gets bigger, almost naughty now. There were actresses who walked onto the set and made me forget my lines. Made me forget I was supposed to act professional. Women who could turn a simple look into something that kept me awake at night. And now, at 71, what do I care? It's been too long to worry about my innocent image anymore. So why not admit it? There were 6 women, 6 amazing women who made me want to throw that nice boy image right out the window. Ron leans forward, resting his elbows on his knees. His voice gets lower like he's sharing a secret. I'll say this, I behaved myself. I always did. But gosh, there were times I didn't want to. Times when the hardest acting I ever did was pretending I wasn't imagining what it would be like to cross the line with them. And those memories have stuck with me longer than any award or any successful movie ever could. He grins, slow and shameless. So, here it is. No holding back, no nice boy act. These are the 6 women who could have made me lose control with just a smile and almost did. Number 1. Cindy Williams. Ron smirks, shaking his head like he's about to confess something he's kept secret for years. Cindy Williams. Oh boy. Cindy was trouble wrapped in sweetness. America knew her as Shirley from Laverne and Shirley. But I knew her as the girl who could knock me down with just one smile on set. He leans back, eyes getting narrow like the memories are still clear. Cindy had this way of acting like she was the girl next door. All wholesome, all laughs, that bubbly energy. But behind that, there was fire. You could see it in the way she moved, the way she could take over a room without even trying. I was supposed to be the happy-go-lucky guy around her. But truth is, half the time my mind was nowhere near wholesome. I'd be standing there saying my lines, and meanwhile, I was just thinking, if she leans in a little closer, I'm in real trouble. He laughs, remembering. You've got to understand, we were both young, both riding the wave of this new kind of TV fame. Long days on set, long nights practicing. It does things to you. There's this closeness, this connection where suddenly you're not just acting partners. You're partners in crime. And Cindy, she had this habit of whispering little jokes in my ear just before the camera started rolling. Sweet words almost, except they weren't sweet at all. They were the kind that made me bite my tongue just to keep from smiling like a fool. Ron's grin turned sly. There was one night, a rap party, lots of music, lots of dancing. Cindy was in this dress that made every man in the room forget their own name. She caught me watching her across the floor, and instead of looking away, she held that stare, long and bold. And let me tell you, that moment right there nearly fried my brain. If I'd walked over, if she'd reached out, that would have been the night I stopped being Ron Opie Howard and became a headline in the morning newspapers. He shakes his head, voice getting softer. I behaved, of course, always the gentleman. But Cindy Williams, she was temptation disguised as comedy. Cute, electric, impossible to ignore. And if either of us had ever decided to cross that line, trust me, the sparks would have lit up more than just the set. They'd have burned up Hollywood gossip magazines for years. Number 2. Sally Field. Ron lets out a knowing laugh, the kind that hints at a story he's been keeping for years. Sally Field, he says slowly, like he's rolling her name around in his mouth. America's sweetheart. The girl next door, every guy wanted to take to the dance and every man wanted to sneak into the back seat with after. He shakes his head, smirking. Now Sally and I, we came up at the same time. TV kids who became Hollywood adults. She had that fresh face charm, that smile that could melt a movie set. But don't let the dimples fool you. There was fire in her. She wasn't just cute. She was sharp, quick, full of spark. You'd be laughing one second, then catching yourself staring the next, thinking, "Good Lord, keep it together, Howard." His voice gets a little lower, half confession, half daydream. She had this way of walking into a room and making it feel lighter. And, I'll be honest, there were plenty of times I thought about what it would be like if that girl next door act of hers turned into something a little more after dark. She'd flash me that grin, toss her hair, and suddenly Opie Taylor didn't feel so innocent anymore. He pauses, pretending to look guilty. I behaved. Always did. But Sally was temptation wrapped up in wholesomeness. That's what made it dangerous. You couldn't write her off as just a fling in your head. No, she was the kind of woman who made you think about the long game. The kind who'd have you tripping over yourself just to stay close. Ron leans back, sighing with fake regret. If I'd ever let myself go with Sally, let's just say the headlines would have called her the Flying Nun. But between us there wouldn't have been much flying, just a whole lot of falling, and I might not have minded one bit. Number 3. Kathleen Quinlan. Ron's smile shifts into something softer, almost admiring. Kathleen Quinlan. Now there's a woman who could make you forget your own name. We worked together on Apollo 13. She played Tom Hanks' wife, staying strong at home. But between takes, I'll admit it. There were moments I thought she could have just as easily been mine. He chuckles, running a hand through his hair like the memory still makes him nervous. Kathleen had this quiet power to her. She wasn't loud. She wasn't trying to be the center of attention, but she didn't have to. When she walked onto the set, the room changed. You felt her before you even saw her. She'd tilt her head, give you that thoughtful look, and suddenly you were standing there, script in hand, forgetting your lines because all you could think was, "Don't stare. Don't stare." His tone drops lower, his voice sliding into a whispery growl. I'll tell you the truth. If she'd leaned in close on that set, whispered anything in that low, husky voice of hers, I would have been done for. It didn't matter if it was Shakespeare or the lunch order. When Kathleen spoke, you felt it in your bones. Ron shakes his head with fake frustration. And Lord, the way she moved, graceful but grounded, like she didn't even know the effect she had. That's what made her dangerous. You can prepare yourself for someone who's trying to turn on the charm. But Kathleen, she didn't have to try. That woman could stand there drinking coffee in the break room and still make you think about crossing lines you had no business crossing. He lets out a long breath, that boyish grin pulling at his face again. I kept it professional, of course. Always did. But Kathleen Quinlan was the kind of woman who made professional feel like the hardest role I ever had to play. And if I'd ever slipped, let's just say Houston wouldn't have been the only one with a problem. Number 4. Cheryl Ladd. Ron laughs softly, almost shaking his head like he's trying to get away with something. Cheryl Ladd. Now there's a woman who could stop you cold. Back in the Happy Days years, she came onto the set and it was like a spotlight had followed her in. She wasn't just beautiful. She was glowing. All-American smile. Hair that looked like sunlight itself, and a confidence that let you know she wasn't just another pretty face. He leans back, his grin getting wider. I remember thinking, Lord, Richie Cunningham doesn't stand a chance around her. She had that kind of effect. Like she'd turned the nicest, most polite boy in the room into someone thinking all sorts of impolite thoughts. And believe me, I was no exception. His voice dips, playful but full of hints. Cheryl had this laugh, this soft little tilt of the head that made you feel like she already knew what was on your mind. And maybe she didn't mind. You'd be practicing a scene, trying to focus, and suddenly you were just hoping nobody noticed where your eyes had wandered. Ron sighs, almost wistful. She was temptation, dressed like the girl next door. And that was the dangerous part because she wasn't out of reach. She was right there, talking with you, smiling at you. If I'd ever let myself go, even just once, I don't think I'd have remembered a single line after. I'd have been too busy trying to remember how to breathe. Number 5. Daryl Hannah. Ron's expression softens into something almost boyish, like he's remembering a crush that never really went away. Daryl Hannah. Lord, that woman nearly ruined me on Splash. I was directing her, but every time she stepped out of the water with that hair clinging to her shoulders, I thought, how the heck am I supposed to keep this professional? He chuckles, rubbing the back of his neck. She had this otherworldly thing about her. Not just because she was playing a mermaid. Daryl was otherworldly. Tall, glowing, eyes that looked straight through you. She didn't just act the part. She was temptation pulled out of the sea and dropped in front of me. His voice dips into a whispery growl. I'll tell you, there were takes where I had to look away just to keep my focus. Because when she smiled, that shy, half-hidden smile, you didn't just see Madison the mermaid. You saw Daryl, the kind of woman who could make a man forget every rule he'd ever made for himself. He pauses, smirking. Now, I kept my distance. I had to. But if Daryl Hannah had ever leaned in close, dripping wet from the tank, whispered something in that soft voice of hers, I might have forgotten I was the director altogether. And I guarantee you I wouldn't have been thinking about lighting setups or camera angles. Number 6. Farrah Fawcett. Ron lets out a slow whistle, shaking his head like he still can't believe it himself. Farrah Fawcett. Lord help me. That woman was every man's daydream in the 70s, and I was no exception. I never made a big movie with her, but Hollywood in those days, you'd cross paths, parties, movie openings, charity events, and whenever Farrah walked in, the whole darn room stopped breathing. He chuckles, almost embarrassed. You think you're prepared because you've seen the posters, the magazines, that famous hair, that smile. But seeing her in person, that was like staring into the sun. You wanted to look away, but you couldn't. Farrah had this glow, effortless, natural, like she didn't even know she was the most dangerous woman in the room. And that only made it worse. Ron leans in, voice dropping low. I'll be honest. There were nights I went home wondering what it would be like if I'd had the guts to say something. Anything. She'd laugh at some other guy's joke, tilt her head, and I'd feel this knot in my chest, thinking, Howard, you fool. You should have gone over there. He sighs, half regret, half smile. Farrah Fawcett wasn't just a crush. She was the kind of woman who reminded you that you were alive. And if I'd ever had the chance, even for one night, I don't think I'd have behaved nearly as well as I always tried to.